Women have been giving birth for centuries, so it's a pretty natural experience, right? Wrong. I'm Stephanie King, professional doula, childbirth educator, and the creator of the My Essential Birth course, the online childbirth education course that's helping women everywhere confidently achieve their best birth. Today's culture would have us think that birth should be treated like an illness or an emergency, and that most of us need other people telling us what's best for our bodies because we aren't the experts. So sit tight, because if you're tuning into this podcast, you'll probably start to believe in your body, your intuition, and find yourself empowered and confident to do what it takes to have the birth of your dreams. If you like listening to me take you through these weekly topics step by step, then you're going to love the My Essential Birth course. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast and definitely head over to myessentialbirth.com for the free downloads mentioned right here in these episodes and to join the birth course and community full of pregnant moms just like you. I have to add a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional and I cannot provide medical advice. All of the information expressed in this podcast are based off of personal, professional, and educational experiences and are my own opinions. Please work with a provider you trust for medical advice during your pregnancy and birth. This week's reviewer of the week is
Sarah's 0727219.
I think it's Sarah S 0727. Yes. 2019 is how I read it, but go ahead.
Difference.
Yeah.
Punctuation.
Maybe the big S was for more than one Sarah. Like they wanted you to know there's a lot more.
There's a lot of Sarahs in that house.
Sarahs.
Mm-hmm. Very good. My favorite pregnancy resource! Exclamation.
Point.
I am so happy my sister-in-law shared this podcast with me. How cute. When I was newly pregnant, I was feeling overwhelmed with all the things to research and nervous about the labor and birth processes. My weathered eyes. The My Essential Birth podcast helped provide me with all the information I needed, and in such a fun and engaging way, too.
He's back.
The more I listened to the podcast, the more confident I became that I could do this. I just had my first baby 1 month ago today, and it was a successful unmedicated birth at a birth center, which was what I had been hoping for.
Hoping for?
What I've been hoping for. Definitely one of the best experiences of my life, and I went into it feeling so prepared, all thanks to this podcast. Isn't that so true?
I think it is. I think that's why she left it. It's because it's true.
It's so true.
Sarah, you're awesome.
Sarah's.
I think all of the Sarahs that left this review, I think probably the best part, my favorite thing is when you guys come back and you're like, remember those things you talked about on the podcast? I learned from them. I did something with them, and I had this great birth. That's like my favorite thing, right?
Because stuff that I did with those things.
Because otherwise, it's just information.
Ideal.
I mean, you can talk and like even reading all the books or watching all the birth videos, just looking at it and listening to it. That's all great stuff. But when you put it to use and you actually make an incredible birth out of it, that's what matters. That makes the difference. So I love it. Keep these coming, you guys. I have kind of a fun. So first of all, I have my husband here. So speaking of fun,
and
I get to have my sweet little baby boy. He's 8, and you have something in your teeth. But my little guy David gets to be here with us. I don't know that you're necessarily going to hear from him. You might hear some giggles in the background.
Or just have him say hello.
Dave, do you want to come say hello?
I'm good.
He's good.
He said he's
Can
good.
I do that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, you're stuck for the duration.
Oh, good.
But if you guys do, so I haven't really announced this. Anyways, there is a My Essential Birth YouTube channel. And so if you happen to see this podcast on that channel, you can see my little guy laughing along with us. Hopefully we'll all be having a great time.
No.
This week we're going to talk about
a real downer of a topic.
Pregnancy, birth, and postpartum care.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
What moms need to know. And I thought it would be fun to bring in the husband's point of view, kind of like, this is what you need to know. Here's how husbands can support. Also, this is what dads think you should know, and this is how they can support. It's a topic that I really want to cover because I know it's really useful information and going to be good for all of you that are listening. It's kind of like, what do you really need to know? And if you're thinking of, so this is kind of back to the My Essential.
No more BS. Let's cut the crap. Just what you need to know.
Well, that's for the guys, right? So these are like your essentials, right? Like
that's
even
the one
throughout,
where you have like the cover of it has your arms all folded. You're kind of kicked back, looking up with your head out, looking serious. You know.
I thought that was somehow I managed.
That was it too.
Anyways, so I'm going to go over the essentials, and then I hope you'll realize that it's not so much that it's something that you can't learn. And I also hope that as you're learning, you're using these podcasts for part of that learning. That would be the idea, that you're getting a ton of information from here. You guys, if you are interested in more information and you want it in a really clean, like sequential, do this, then do this, then do this, that's what the birth course is for. All the information is in there. It's in sequential order. It's everything you and your birth partner need to know. You guys can prepare really easily together. If you haven't looked into it yet, I really want you to. It's myessentialbirth.com, and just click the Get Started button. I'd love to have you join.
That's what plural Sarah did.
Anyway, so the whole point is, like, I hope you become more confident and prepared and knowledgeable, because that makes an empowered birth, period. And when you have that, you feel really good, right, sweetie?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So for pregnancy, I'm just going to break it down. I thought we would kind of go through pregnancy, what the essentials are, labor and birth, what those essentials are, and then kind of through the postpartum period. So you just jump in anytime you're feeling like we got to talk about this.
Wrong. This is not right. Yeah. That sort of thing. Okay.
Yes. So he'll be correcting me.
Mm-hmm.
Basically what I thought is, with pregnancy and what you need to know, the earlier you do these things, the better. Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
And why? Like, why does that really matter? If you're like a couple weeks pregnant or a couple months pregnant, what's the difference in getting the knowledge earlier versus later? Does it really matter?
Well,
like,
it provides...
Could I take a birth course, or could I start listening to a podcast, in the third trimester instead of the first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I like to do with everything. No, the more advanced notice you have, the more prepared you can be. It's just like practicing for a game. So the more advanced you have to study out your opponent and to practice and be ready for them, your opponent is that baby.
Oh my gosh.
It's not going to win. You're going to win. You're going to get that thing out.
Then you both win.
And it's a win-win. They feel better after. I mean, it hurts a little bit, but they feel better after. You feel better after. It's like a good solid.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
Good solid what?
Passing of a
good
baby.
Solid BM. So
I said baby.
I knew it. Yeah. Well. Okay.
Real big one.
So here's the thing: if you start learning these things earlier, and I'm going to tell you what I think that, like, number one, right, should kind of be something to, like, have in the back of your mind about when you get pregnant, if you're not pregnant, or if you are pregnant, focusing on this kind of thing first. And that has to do with being healthy and low risk. But I think you're right. The earlier, the better. The knowledge and preparation, you're never going to know too much. You're never going to wish you hadn't read that extra book on pregnancy or birth.
Yeah.
You can't gather too much information. And so I think I want to move that into kind of the first thing that I talk about even within the birth course, which is staying healthy and low risk.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. That's very important that you get to that, because the earlier you're aware of what your diet should look like,
yes,
the better you are.
Right. So say that you start a birth course and you're only 6 weeks pregnant, right? Like for us, we signed up for a birth course and we were trying to get pregnant. Like that's how
obsessed
much I
you
was
were.
Obsessed. I wanted to take a really good birth course. But the benefit to that was you learn all of the things that are going to make a difference for keeping your body healthy and low risk, which really just keeps you in the driver's seat for your birth. Because if you're coming up against medical things that all of a sudden you can't control and you need a care provider to help you control or to manage for you, then it leaves you with a little less options. So for example, if you get preeclampsia or you come down with like gestational diabetes.
That's bad.
Which some of that we don't have control over, right? But we do know, like there are studies that show women that have a really high protein, well-balanced diet.
What does high protein, well-balanced diet mean, sweetie?
You tell me. Do you know what it means?
Something on the range of 75 to 100 grams of protein a day.
Gold. Yes. Yeah.
And not like floofy weird protein, like real stuff.
What is floofy weird protein?
You know, like, oh yeah, this has probably got 100 grams of protein in it. Is you like
gotta,
a stack
you
of
track
64 slices of American cheese.
Okay. Yes. So not. I guess.
Actually, that would have enough protein in it, but it's. Yeah.
I can't.
You're gonna be having 2 babies that time.
Oh my gosh, right? It's not a calorie count, but eating a healthy, well-balanced, high-protein diet.
Yes.
That was all kind
well
of part
balanced.
Of right. So the idea is, right, if you can stay in control of some of these things and lower your risks, then you're going to have more options. You can, when you're healthy and low risk, you can choose to birth out of the hospital or not. You can choose to, not have your care managed. You can choose to not be induced. So there's just a couple of things that put you back in the driver's seat when you are healthy and low risk. And like I said, it starts with nutrition.
And it prevents a lot doing that, a high protein diet early.
And there is more information, I think what I love or what is very important to me is that things are evidence-based. And so there is more information coming out now, more studies coming out now that are showing those levels are even higher than we thought that they were. And so within the birth course, this 75 plus grams of protein is based off of a Harvard study from quite a while ago. And I'm just going to tell you now that protein is even higher. So that would be like the bare base minimum that you're talking about when you're first pregnant. You're looking at like 100 plus, and you should be eating more protein as you grow that baby. So
get a big giant bag of protein for a protein shake.
You should absolutely be supplementing with a protein shake because it is a lot, and as your belly gets bigger and your stomach gets smaller,
if you're not used to it,
it can be hard to get that amount of protein. And so having good protein snacks, starting your day with breakfast and protein. I'm having to learn some of this, relearn it again, and then keeping up on that protein throughout the day and adding a protein shake where needed, I think is excellent advice.
There is not protein in a donut. There's no protein in a donut.
That's not true.
It's very minimal.
Well, according to my app, there is protein in the donut that
it's a waste of your time.
Apped it yesterday for. What does well balanced mean?
Well, more than just crackers and cheese sort of thing, but like a variety of foods. Vegetables are good.
We kind of say like eat a rainbow.
That's going to help your food babies that you're making all this time come out a lot easier. Vegetables.
Does it help your food babies?
I don't eat vegetables.
Come out a lot easier.
You know that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, actually, constipation, and this is not like an essential thing. Constipation is a thing during pregnancy, you guys. And there are several things that you can do, one of which is eating good high fiber food, leafy greens, dark leafy green vegetables. Another is there's psyllium husks, right?
Oh, yes.
So we order these if you're looking for a natural thing that you can add to your shake.
Something to come out nice and fluffy.
Grind that in. This is not an episode about poop. You have to stop.
Then why did you invite me on?
I'm so sorry. Okay. So psyllium husks, another one is magnesium citrate. So there's some things that you can take that help things move a little more instead of just a stool softener, which during my first pregnancy I absolutely did take because of not having good knowledge and then having some issues. So, okay, work on that, well-balanced, all that stuff.
Now who's talking about poop?
Along with that, it's in context, 100% in context. Okay. Also taking your vitamins, okay? So we've got like our prenatal vitamin, kind of like I talked about. The one that the provider gives you that's a once daily, that's great. That's another one of those bare minimum things. If you're looking for something a little bit healthier, they are probably a little bit pricier, right? Like even the prenatals, I think were covered on insurance. And so I understand if that's a thing. But you want to look for something that's not necessarily a once daily because not all of those things can be absorbed at once and you need a little bit more than what would be offered in a once daily. So looking for something that's not a once daily and a little bit healthier, there's a bunch of different options.
Whole nutrition is always best. Like getting vitamins and minerals from a variety of foods, vegetables, fruits, meats, all those sorts of things is best. Supplements are just better than nothing. Not to say that they don't have their place, but they're better than nothing and they help in the place of doing nothing.
Right, but there's different kinds of supplements, like different quality of supplements too. Sure. So I'm with you 100%. That should happen there, but I think every woman should take a prenatal.
Yeah, no, they should. I'm just saying.
Not to lean on that.
Not to lean on that for all of your nutrition. You need to have a variety in your diet.
And I agree. Another one is probiotics. And I don't know if you want to have your moment with how you feel about probiotics in this minute.
That's okay.
Okay. But
I took a lot of biochemistry.
Anyways,
probiotics don't do anything.
I disagree. And I think that there's some
quality
studies that show that they do some good. So anyways, taking like a good one, and I'll link a couple just in the show notes so that you guys have them, but Yarrow Probiotics and then Garden of Life Primal Defense. Those are two that I've recommended before. I do recommend them within the birth course, and it can be really like positive. So I know that you guys hear a lot, or you're concerned a lot about GBS, right? Group B strep. So this is a test that you have later on in pregnancy. They do a vaginal swab, and they tell you either are positive for this bacteria or negative for it in that location. It's a bacteria that we all carry. If you're positive for it, then the idea is that you might be able to pass that bacteria on to baby as they pass through the birth canal, and that it can cause some very serious problems.
That's bad.
And I won't get into all the percentages and how high or low or whatever, but they also want you to be there at the hospital early, several hours before giving birth, so that they can administer IV antibiotics. And so a lot of women are like, well, how do I make the test come up negative so I don't have to do that? First of all, if you have a positive test, you still have the option to choose to not have the antibiotics. And I won't get into the pros and cons of all that. That's for your research. I just want you to know you have a choice. But secondly, a lot of what I hear is like, oh, can I like stick a fresh piece of garlic up there for a day or two?
Wow.
Before I take the test. And here's the thing. It's actually been proven that it can make it negative, but it doesn't stop you from being positive.
Right, from having GBS.
From actually having it. And so if you're someone that knows, no, if I test, if I really do have it at the time of birth, like if I knew that for myself, if there was a way for me to know that I had it, that I would choose to have the antibiotics, then I highly recommend you don't do something like that. You want the test to be accurate. You still have a choice either way, but you want the test to be accurate. Now, probiotics, the idea behind a well-balanced diet, a lack of things like sugar and an overabundance of dairy, which can create an overabundance of yeast and some other things. Adding a probiotic is supposed to help with that health, create good bacteria, and combat any negative bacteria in that area. It's not perfect. It doesn't do it all the time. But from what we've seen, there is a higher rate of that test being negative. In other words, a higher rate of moms being negative for GBS during pregnancy, which I think is one of those things that gives you a little bit more control over your birth space.
Good.
Is that enough of a tangent?
Yes.
Okay. So I think some other things that are really essential is figuring out how you handle pain. And I think when this one was brought up to me, that was one of the first things that I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. I thought I had like envisioned how I was going to handle contractions, for example, but I hadn't stopped to think how I handle everyday pain. And I think if you are someone who has period cramping, menstrual pain, that how you handle that pain is going to be very similar for how you handle contraction pain. Or if there's something that you do with that kind of pain that works, that would also be something that works during that time. I don't know. What do you think about that? Like knowing how you handle pain to use that in a situation where you know you're going to experience pain.
It's hard to gauge how a person handles pain, I think.
Well, how do you handle pain?
I handle it pretty well.
What do you do? When you experience pain, and I'm talking physical, what do you do?
I usually laugh. Like, in my natural response, I kind of laugh because I usually did something stupid to inflict pain upon myself.
Actually, he does do that sometimes, which is kind of funny. Like, I love that you handle it that way because I go the opposite. I get really upset.
Yeah, you do.
At myself, at everyone around me.
Everybody else is to blame for you stubbing your toe.
It's really true. But
it's our fault that we moved the earth up just a little bit that day into your way.
Have, yeah. So... But it made me think about that because, okay, if I stub my toe, if I bump something, if I have, if I broke whatever, what do I do? Pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like immediate, like,
we're doing triage?
It, right? Like you grab
pressure,
it.
elevation, all that stuff.
Okay.
Rest.
I don't know. Yeah, actually.
Ice, which actually doesn't do anything,
but it can numb it.
Rest is one of the only things that actually helps you heal from traumatic injury.
Okay, well, this is different. You're going to have pain that's continuing.
Yeah.
Some people use medication, which I think is really important to throw out there. Like if you have a headache, how do you handle that pain? Some people go lay down and they turn the lights off.
You want to avoid ibuprofen.
They use essential oils
later in the stages of your pregnancy.
Yeah, right. But I'm talking about like pain medication that you would use during labor. If I'm talking about contractions, But you're right. That was a good disclaimer. Don't use ibuprofen for a headache during pregnancy.
Later in the stages of your pregnancy because you can affect the baby's heart.
But
yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the thought is like different people handle pain different ways. And so if your first thing is to go for the medication and not to do some other normal natural, it might be counterintuitive for you to think when I have this pain that I'm going to try and work through it or allow it to get a little stronger or right. And it's not that you can't, but I think it's important to think of those things.
Yes.
Here's one for you.
Okay.
How you need to be supported.
How
do
you
need
to be
to
supported?
support.
That's true. Yeah.
It's an essential that you need to know.
That's true. That's practice with your partner. And that has to happen, because if you don't do it, even if that's not how it's going to play out in the actual labor, it's important that you've built that connection through practicing.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes we don't know until we're there.
That's true. Everything that you'd practiced and thought was going to be great, and then you get there and it's like, don't ever do that to me again.
But thankfully, you have all the tools going in, whereas the other way is kind of what we did the first time, right? We didn't have any tools, and then we also didn't know, like, I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. You didn't know what I needed. Yeah. That wasn't helpful.
Right.
So it's right. And we're laughing about that a little bit because I am a sucker for massage. I want it all day, every day.
No, not when you're laboring.
Except for when I'm in labor.
Yeah.
And that's what we had practiced.
You want me to do that
That's
kitty paw thing where I kind of purr and knead on you like I'm making biscuits?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
But I remember I wanted you to be near me, and I liked holding your hand.
Yeah.
And I felt really safe when you were next to me. Like you weren't doing anything except for you were next to me. So when we were walking up the stairs, or when we took a walk outside, or you were rubbing my feet. At one point I have a picture of it where I was like on the ground, just sitting on the ground.
What noise do you make when I rub your feet? That's right.
It comes...
Anytime she wants a massage,
Simpsons.
I require this noise to be made.
It's Sideshow Bob.
Even if we're in public.
Massaging Selma's feet. So he
It's
makes
from
me
The
make the
Simpsons,
noise.
yeah.
But if I make the noise, I'll keep doing it.
She's just one of the most repulsive
funny for him,
women on the planet.
And I get more massages, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. Okay. You guys are going to get to know us a little too much.
And you should
I
do
wonder
the
if it's gonna
2-finger
be
method
off-putting.
for holding your hand for when you have to squeeze.
I even said
Do you ever mention that?
I don't know. You missed it. Don't touch me there.
Okay.
It's squishy.
Okay.
Anyways, so he's talking about like for support that it's always a really good idea.
So your fingers don't get destroyed when she's going through a contraption.
Because it's true, like it
you
can feel really good to
for
squeeze
her to hold instead of
something.
3, because it's like
so squeeze 2 of his
2
fingers.
is
not
more
3.
stable than 3.
3
You'll
you could
just
break
like
a finger.
collapse the other ones on top of the other. And
okay.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are taking notes.
Just quick little bits of information, useful information. That's all I am today.
It's all the essentials, you guys. So how about relaxation? That's totally something that we practiced.
We practiced, a lot of that where I was...
And meditation.
Meditation and kind of hypnosis sort of thing in a sense. And then when it came down to it, when you were laboring, you didn't want that.
But it was really important that I learned how to relax myself.
Yes.
I didn't want any of that, but I utilized all of it.
Yeah.
So, that was something that we did together. So it looked like, do you remember what it was like?
I do, yeah. You mean the way that I would make you picture something in your mind and all
Yeah,
these
so
things
it would be at night before we went to bed. The lights would be out. I'd be laying on my side.
Yeah.
And what would happen?
Oh, I'd have you start by counting down. At certain points, it sounds silly, but so depending on how you do it, at certain points, you'll either have them picture an image or an object in their mind, a 3-dimensional one, or it can start out 2-dimensional, and then you instruct them to focus on that image. And after they've held it for a little while, you change the image somehow so it becomes more intently focused on. So you can change the color of it. You can make it 3-dimensional. In my case, I usually made it 3-dimensional, like a sphere or something like that. And then from there, I started adding texture to it, so it'd get a little more high resolution, a little more detailed. And then from there, I'd have it moving or go into motion, so it becomes a little more detailed, a little more high resolution, these things that you start focusing on. And then I'd also be kind of massaging through your forehead and doing pressure points of relaxation, just kind of getting you used to what that feels like, me taking away like pressure like right between your eyes on your forehead and kind of pushing it away towards your temples.
He's very good at this.
And then
it's a talent.
on your...
It is.
And I can put women to sleep like you wouldn't believe.
You put me to sleep like you would. I don't know that that's...
Well, that's like a slight of a talent. As I'm doing now to most of your audience. And so anyway... Yes. Or I do it on your head, like the middle of your head, and I would just follow like points or meridian points on the body that kind of gored towards relaxing areas. And then I'd have you start counting down. I'd put you, in my particular case, I would put you in an elevator.
Not every time.
Not every time,
we
but
did it
sometimes.
once, and you weren't allowed to do it again.
Oh, it was a little too much.
It was too much.
It was too intense.
How
But
many
I would put you in
floors
an-
did you take the elevator up?
I don't know. No, it's down. You take the elevator down.
Well, you started
And
doing
you get
down
deeper
after,
and more relaxed
after
with
you
each
took me into
level.
a glass elevator, like 20 stories high.
No.
So when you're imagining things, you're trying to relax. Yes, it was glass, and it was super high.
Anyway, so usually you go down, and as you go down, you get more and more relaxed until you open up into like a nice, peaceful area at the very bottom floor and let them out.
And those were really relaxing. And I actually have a meditation within the course that is something kind of similar, not really, but it involves taking you down deeper like that, and it really does relax. So.
Also, whenever I tell her to crack her knuckles, she starts clucking like a chicken. That's how effective the hypnosis was.
It was not the case.
Really? Do we want to show everyone?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just kidding.
Let's see what happens.
Crack your knuckles, sweetie.
I can't.
Just kidding.
Anyways, we did labor rehearsals too. I think I'm not. Yeah, but it wasn't real.
I know. I'm just kidding.
We did labor rehearsals too, and I liked doing those. I don't know about you, but I liked pretending that I was in labor and acting as if, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to breathe? How am I going to lean on you? So those were helpful for me. We talked about meditation. I think the knowledge side of it, and this is kind of where, just as we had talked about, kind of knowing your options, having the knowledge behind the decisions that you're making to be able to create the birth that you desire, and then having a provider that supports that birth. You have to know what kind of birth you want before you can decide if that provider is going to be the right one for you. And so I think it is essential. I think it's something you need to know for your pregnancy, that you can change your provider at any given time.
Yeah.
Anytime. And I mean, if you're hearing this and you're 37, 38 weeks and you're like, this podcast sounds really good to me, the things that they're saying here, my provider and I aren't on the same page, interview another one. It doesn't matter.
It's okay. Get a new one. You will meet nutso doctors.
And the difference is, and you know what? Even if you're not sure, even if you're like, well, he's kind of on board, interview another one anyways. Because it won't be until you have the contrast that you're able to say, oh, yeah, for real, that I wasn't getting what I needed there. I need this.
You wanted to lock me down in like a dark little closet or something weird.
What?
I don't know. Providers can be nuts.
Okay.
They're people too. Don't forget, they're people too. And you know how nuts you are. So.
Well, I know how nuts my husband is.
Wow.
Okay. Figuring out what you want, knowing what you need to practice, what tools to use during labor, kind of just all that knowledge part. I think those would be my top essentials for what you need to know for pregnancy. And I kind of threw them all together. So if you like really want me to go through, I think you should probably check out the show notes that are going to be for this podcast. But basically it was the knowledge and preparation, which is going to be part of pregnancy, labor, birth. All of that is going to be included. You'll have knowledge and preparation as my top essential for all of those. And then I want you to think about staying healthy and low risk. And so preparing for pregnancy earlier. And then we talked about kind of those things that you can do together or should be doing together with your partner, understanding how you handle pain, how you need to be supported. And then we talked about relaxation, labor rehearsal, meditation, and then the knowledge that goes along with being able to create a birth map that works for you, find a provider that's going to support everything that we put on the birth plan. So I got a little crazy there. So I wanted to kind of sum that up.
Okay.
For just a second.
All those things.
All those things. So, well, it's what do you need to know? And I think those were all on the need to know list.
There's a lot of need to know.
Well, there's a lot more than that.
This could be like a 24-part episode.
But if you only knew those things that I put on there, I still think that I think if you, I don't know. It's the bullet point version that makes you want to learn more anyway. So yeah. That's good.
And I think you cover all this in your course anyway. So.
Absolutely. Okay, that and more. Labor and birth. So I think something I talked about, best birth positions. I think that is a really good thing to know. If you don't know the different positions to practice and to try to get in, it's awkward during like, oh yeah, let me stick my leg up on this chair. Why are we doing this again? That doesn't feel good. So you have to have some kind of knowledge behind these things, but to understand what the different positions are that you can use during birth. And really it's anything. It's any way that you contort your body that feels good. But there are some details behind some of those positions and what they do, whether they're opening the inlet or the outlet of the pelvis, or if you have pain in the back or in the front, what you can do to utilize those positions for more comfort and an easier birth.
Yes.
There it is. Okay, and then there's...
You want my approval for you? You know about this more than I do.
You were nodding your head, and your big thing is to say yes. So I was waiting for the approval.
I should get a T-shirt that says that. Yes. My thing is to say yes.
No, just yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mine will say you have birth options. Yours will say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
How a birth partner can support you. So there's a couple different ways when it comes. There's some things to do during pregnancy. It's a little different during labor and birth. What are the things that stand out to you that you needed to know to be able to do? Or that you found really useful to know?
You need to eat despite...
You talking about you or me?
No, you. Well,
Pregnant?
I mean, yeah, I need to eat too.
Yeah.
But
so laboring mom needs to eat.
Laboring mom needs to eat despite what some people might think.
Or what policies.
You need to keep moving. You need to keep moving.
Yep.
You need words of encouragement, sometimes snarky comments and humor.
It's true, actually.
Yeah.
If you have a good relationship with your birth partner or your husband, like he had me laughing on our third birth especially, and I loved it so much. And
sometimes you need to lean in and very quietly whisper, quit faking your push through the contractions. I can tell you're faking it.
A little bit of encouragement there.
Yeah. Suck it up. Get it together.
I could have done this 3 hours ago.
Yeah, we could have been in bed already. Quit wasting everyone's time and dawdling around.
Oh boy!
You
guys have seen those memes, right?
It couldn't possibly hurt that bad. With the guy sitting on the
toilet, that's like, I push my baby out in longer times than it takes my husband to poop. Think about that, because I had a 4.5 pushing time.
Yeah, well, with what we had for lunch. What else? That's pretty much doing the forklift thing. I patented that one.
Patented, yes.
Patented.
TM.
Trademarked. TM.
Was that an Office thing? Did he just trademark his... What was that from?
Yeah, it was an Office thing.
Who was it?
It's that guy they were interviewing when they lost the main character.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to put that in the show notes too.
Yeah, sure.
I do. I link to funny stuff. Wait, I have to see what quote they're talking about on The Office.
Need. You've become the old woman on Facebook who starts pushing out all these weird memes and crap to her kids and relatives that nobody wants to listen to or read. That's what you're doing with your show notes.
You're really rude. People don't...
No.
I'm not pushing it in their face like, hey, everybody come look here. It's just, if you would like to know what the heck I was just talking about, here's a link.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's it.
Also, if you don't forward it to your 10 best friends, you're going to die from whatever.
A given.
Your baby's going to come out weird looking.
I didn't see that part. All right. I think it's important to know what your rights are. So you talked about some ways that you can support, right? Like hands-on. We talked about verbal encouragement. Yeah. I think just being there, like being present. So, I interviewed a woman recently, and I think that podcast episode is going to come out quite a bit after this, but she talked about the importance of her husband just being off of his phone. She's like, our first birth, he didn't really know what to do. He was kind of in the corner sitting on his phone because I was handling things really well from what he could see, but I was doing a lot of work and I wanted him to be present. And so that third birth, she's like, he was present with me. He wasn't on his phone. He was next to me. He was paying attention. And I think a lot of times, we don't give men the credit to like they don't know what to do if we don't tell them.
That's true. Just like we can't read your minds in normal conversation or daily life, we're really not going to be able to read them when you're,
during labor. But that's why it's really important for you to have some things that you can do, because that's when we really can't tell you.
Yeah.
So I think just being present, being there, advocating for your wife, the mama. I think it's really important that, we don't always... There's some things, like you said, we kind of get into this dreamland, or we call it like labor land, right? And there's a lot, we're having an entire different world of things going on in our mind, and we can kind of hear what's happening around us, but we can't necessarily interact with it. We're too focused on the work ahead of us. And so I think it's really important that dad's very aware of, this is what my wife wants, or this is what mom wants, and in any way that he can, being able to step in and step up for her during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, you respond very well to a healthy dose of sarcasm.
I do. Everybody else might not.
That's true. Know your spouse. Dave was like zoned out there.
Dave. He's waiting for me to ask a question because he wants to be on the podcast.
Oh, I see.
I think it's important to know what your rights are. Hands down.
Ask Dave what he thinks is right.
If you don't know that you can walk into any hospital and tell them, no, I don't want an IV because it's my body and I'm saying no to that, or the same thing with a vaginal exam, then you don't know your rights. And those are just the very basic, simple first things that you're going to come across. But in other words, it is your body. Nobody needs to be touching it or anything else. You have certain rights. And it goes along with those preferences. Like something that's on the very top of my list, might not be on yours, but on the top of my list is clothing. I want to be in my own clothing. That's my comfort space. And I don't want an IV. No needles. It's kind of this like, right? You stick a needle in my arm and it's dead.
I thought you were saying
move
you
it
didn't.
Anymore.
It says IV. I thought you were saying you didn't want to watch Rocky IV.
That's exactly what I was saying.
I get it.
I wouldn't want to watch that either during my birth. Anyways, so there's some like, or you talked about eating. Like eating is huge.
Yeah. Why would they not let you eat?
I don't know.
Because they don't want to deal with your poop.
I'm not going to tell you ever to sneak food and eat it during labor. I would never tell you to do that.
Will.
But I will tell you that a laboring woman needs energy.
Yeah.
And it comes from food.
Yeah, your whole body's in like a full dry heave from every muscle. You think you don't need calories to keep that going?
If your body's in a full dry heave, you're not going to want anything to
That's
eat.
what I mean. Like, you know, you got to get the energy.
Anyways,
it's for like 10 hours. It's a marathon here.
It is a marathon. You
need
do
power
need
gel.
sustenance.
Just shoot it into her mouth. The power gel.
I mean, you could.
And some
Women do
Gatorade
that.
from one of those bottles that you squeeze and it shoots the Gatorade out or the water out.
Okay, so just knowing your birth preferences, right? Like you can have intermittent monitoring and you don't need to be stuck to the bed and you can ask for a birth ball or a peanut ball. Lights and sounds, all of that is up to you. You can actually turn the monitors down, you guys. Like that beeping that's going constantly and can get really irritating the whole time. Even the one with your baby's heartbeat. Like sometimes it's really nice to hear that and sometimes it's like, I am so tired of hearing this background noise. You know, I want to listen to music or I want to listen to nothing. You can turn that down. It's the same with the smells. I know something that I really liked. No.
Sorry.
Well, hopefully. But I know something that I really liked was your cologne. So I'd ask you to like spray it on like a shirt or something, and it would be really comforting to me. So there's just, I mean, and then you want to avoid things like make sure Dad doesn't bring something that's got garlic or.
Why did I have that double bacon Western cheeseburger?
Yeah, for all the smells, right?
Yeah.
Peanuts, beef jerky, just whatever, but you get the point. So those were kind of my essentials for this is what you need to know for labor and birth. Dave, did you want to add anything to that?
You'll have a baby.
Okay, now go sit down.
All right.
Good work, Dave.
Joe would have said it.
Oh, he'd be very serious.
I know.
We should have Joe bring him and do a podcast. Oh, wait.
No, I'm just kidding.
All right, let's talk about the postpartum.
Fun.
What you need to know. And postpartum is from the time that you give birth to the baby and that baby is put directly on you to
baby's here.
We say like the 6-week period till you see your provider again till forever. I'm going to talk about some things that are really important to know, but I think understanding that postpartum is forever after you have your baby, and some of the conditions maybe that we think negatively about or that we're concerned about that we're going to talk about, that those shouldn't maybe last forever, and so what to be aware of. But I think number one is you need to know what your preferences are, because if you don't know, just like I had talked about in labor and birth, that you can say some things yes or no to some things, then they will just happen to you or happen to your baby. And so the first one is after you give birth to your baby, so your baby is completely born, the first thing they're going to worry about is cutting and clamping, or clamping and then cutting the baby's cord. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do that. You can wait. You can do something called delayed cord clamping. Gives your baby the rest of their baby's blood. You know, if there is a reason that they need to, work on baby right away or whatever, I know in the hospital setting, they immediately clamp and cut. But I will tell you that at home births, even in emergent situations, they actually leave baby attached to the placenta. So I think some of it's policy, I think some of it's practice, how your provider practices, but it is an option.
At least until age 5.
Yeah. And then there's the active management of the 4th stage. So this is something that women don't know that anyways. After you give birth to your baby, you also have to birth the placenta. So baby is done, they're out. You also have a placenta that needs to come out.
Yum.
Yeah. Actually, some women do eat it.
I know.
So with that, though, there's something called active management of the fourth stage, or as soon as baby's born. And what that looks like in a hospital setting or out of hospital setting, if this is how they practice, is that they'll give mom a higher dose of Pitocin, a shot of Pitocin. So if you've had Pitocin and it's already in the IV, or you have an IV, they'll give you a bag of Pitocin. In other words, they want something that's going to make sure that you have really strong contractions that clamp the uterus down, that help the bleeding stop. It's not required. So I know when I say that, I don't know. There are different schools of thought here. There's the wait and see. You can wait and see if you are hemorrhaging, if there's too much blood, before you decide to do that, or you can immediately do it. But you have a choice, and you can talk to your provider about that. There's different reasons for it. I won't get into all that. I just want you to know that you have an option there. It's the same with baby being born. They can be immediate skin to skin. They don't need to be whisked away and weighed and measured and cleaned off and all of that. You can choose if you want them to have the Hep B vaccine or the erythromycin, which is the cream that they put in babies' eyes. There's reasons for and not to do those as well. Same with washing the baby. So just understanding that you have preferences postpartum, that you get to choose what those things are.
Yes.
Okay. And then I want to talk about
just poke me with a stick when you need me to wake up and answer yes.
That sounds good. I wanted to talk about postpartum mood disorders just for a moment, because I'm talking about them as postpartum, but a lot of these start prenatally. Whether or not you're someone who has experienced any kind of depression or anxiety or any other mood disorder prior to pregnancy. And I experienced this but didn't know what it was with my first, and then heard about it later that you can have prenatal depression, because you only hear about postpartum depression. And also that it affects dad, which I think is not your depression affects dad, although I guess it could. But
yes,
that dad's going through some really hard stuff too, or a life change as well. And so there's some things to look for there as well, just to know that. Yeah. So what would have been helpful for you, knowing that you did experience some of that some of those harder emotions later? What would have been helpful for you to either know before, or that mom could be aware of prior?
That it's not permanent. And to recognize that, I think knowing that it's not permanent, that it's something that can go away or will go away. And
do you remember what made it go away for you?
No.
Was it like counseling or exercising or?
I don't know. I think
time,
maybe exercise,
bonding with the baby.
Yeah. I know I was working out on gymnastic rings a lot with our first one right after he was born. So much so that when I did eventually go into the military, I was doing like 40 or 60 pull-ups at a time because I was so used to doing so much. I guess I had a lot. I guess I had a lot I had to work out right there. But yeah, I think that exercise, having normal hobbies that you do. I mean, don't let them consume your life, but
yeah. I think especially for first-time moms, like for me, I went from being a really social person and liking, I like to go do things and get outside and go to dinner and.
But you still like that, but only if everybody was doused in hand sanitizer first.
No, I wasn't worried like that. You keep saying that, but I really wasn't.
She was.
Maybe I would be now, but I wasn't then. But I had a ton of anxiety.
I know.
So then, like, part of me didn't want to leave the house at all. But then I was, like, so tired of being just stuck inside. Anyway, so it's just this, like, back and forth. But understanding that those things can happen and that there's help for you. So, and that it's normal. It's actually really, really normal. So I think they say like 33% of women experience postpartum depression. It's like way higher.
The other 2/3 are lying.
But those are the amount of people that say they are experiencing postpartum depression, and to reach out to the right people, right? Because I was concerned as I was experiencing some postpartum stuff. When I went for that 6-week checkup, I didn't write down anything. Like, they give you a list, like, are you feeling this? Are you feeling this? And I'm like, no. I don't want to talk to my provider about this.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with this person. I don't want him to throw medication at me. It wasn't a safe space. So that became a problem.
Or maybe part of your anxiety when answering something like that is, oh my gosh, if the state knows this, they might come take my baby.
Or and not that any of it was, but
Yeah.
you do, like, when you're anxious already, it's like you don't want to tell anybody how you're feeling. Like, you feel like it's very abnormal, or you shouldn't be feeling that way, or you feel guilty for feeling that way, and that's not
sometimes
the
you
case.
run into providers that even if you did tell them, wouldn't know what to do with you anyway.
Right.
So
it's true. So that's where you reach out to like a postpartum specialist, or if you're in,
for sure,
you know, like a
postpartum
local group, like a local moms group or something, you can kind of ask around and get some ideas, get some help. And then understanding kind of along with that, how someone can help you, how your birth partner can help you. So what kind of support you need postpartum, which I think sometimes you're like, plan as best as you can, but then you don't know exactly what you're going to need. So what was really helpful for us postpartum? What did you find really helpful? People bringing us meals.
Yeah, that was nice. People bringing us meals. That was nice. I think my parents were there for all of them, weren't they? No.
Not the second.
The second one. Well, no, you're right. The second one I left like 2 weeks after he was born. Or like just a week after he was born.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know. I had other things. But for you, it was nice, I think, when those people showed up and you had support.
Yeah.
Be surrounded with people who can support you.
As much as possible.
Yeah.
Or even hire it in if you can afford it, like a postpartum doula.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, now it's great, too, because they've got things like Grubhub and, you know, they'll deliver your groceries.
But isolating yourself is just going to make it worse.
Yeah, but also sometimes it's just like
people.
ease of, like, if I'm recovering from a cesarean birth or whatever, and you wanted to stay home with me, like, well, let's order in food instead of you leaving, which is going to make me uncomfortable.
No. When you said ordering food, I meant you should take advantage of those things. I just mean don't avoid people.
Yes, I agree.
Don't isolate yourself. Be around other people.
Yeah.
Because they'll help you. And it'll help you get over your anxieties of having other people around you.
Yeah, it's true. Along with that would be that you can get breastfeeding support.
Nice.
So IBCLCs, or International Board Certified Lactation Consultants, are going to be your go-tos. Finding somebody local that you can contact that can come visit you and do a consult in your home. And then along with that are La Leche League meetings. So these are local meetings to your area with other moms who are breastfeeding successfully and or have overcome issues and can offer support. A lot of times they're led by IBCLCs. They can't wear that hat when they're there, or different lactation consultants. And so you're getting a lot of really good help as well as the community. And I think that's really important for a mom.
What's an IBCLC?
Postpartum, an International Board Certified Lactation Consultant.
Oh, okay.
It is different than just a lactation consultant.
Okay.
Like by many, many hours and lots of years of training.
Oh, okay.
Belly binding, I don't know that that's like a need to know, but I wish I knew. And I didn't until after our third. And then I tried to bind myself, which was somewhat effective. But I mean, there weren't even any videos or anything out there. So I wish I would have kind of done that for myself. Even if I would have gotten like a nice Velcro bind, I wish I would have done something to kind of support that. We talked about food. I think meal trains is something to think about. And then everything that happens before your 6-week checkup. And this is where I think we get it wrong in the United States. And in OB care in general, because out of hospital midwifery care, like a birth center or a home birth, an out of hospital midwife is going to check in on you. She's going to have several meetings before that 6-week mark. She's going to be calling and checking on you. And that's when the majority of really serious issues happen for mom. That's when maternal death happens. That's, we've got postpartum hemorrhages and blood clots and different things that can happen during that time on top of mental health.
Not to get everyone all riled up.
No, but I think it's like nobody tells you about that. And it's like, okay, you had your baby, your 6-week checkup. Let's make sure you're not bleeding anymore.
Yeah.
They don't tell you anything, and that's not fair.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Stop bleeding.
Yeah. I want to remind you, obviously, it's okay to ask for help. Mental help, if you need help around your home, literally all the helps, breastfeeding, help from your partner. All the helps.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And try to create that culture that you want, that village that you want. And that happens before you give birth. I think we're blessed. We are part of a church organization. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I will say everywhere we've moved, there has been a local church, what we call a ward, or it's a meeting place. And community. We've had instant community, and I find that religious community or having that community nearby is really, really helpful, and they do kind of build up that village. So they did bring meals, and we did have people calling and checking on me, and that was like a natural, normal part of what they do. Not everybody has that, and so if you don't, find a way to create it or go seeking that thing, because I think it's really helpful.
Yes, all the helps.
All the helps. All right, you guys, that was probably a longer episode than it should have been. I hope you enjoyed it, though. I hope that you were able to kind of go back or at least think through your mind as we were talking about some of these things and kind of jot that down that, oh, I didn't think of that. And I do think it's really important. Obviously, if there's other things that I didn't think of or you have questions about, you can always reach me on Instagram at myessentialbirth and send me a DM or at hello@myessentialbirth.com.
That should be your t-shirt. All the helps. We're not getting over that one.
Yes.
All the helps.
That's it for this week, but make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you get notifications first as I drop a new episode every week. And don't forget to head over to myessentialbirth.com for all of the free downloads mentioned here and to join the birth course and community serving pregnant moms just like you. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, I would love it if you would take a few minutes to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I read every single one and include one at the beginning of each episode. See you next week.